Hello. Extreme poverty is an extremely sad state in which people earn and live below the international poverty line, which means that they earn and live on less than $1.25 every day. Roughly 1.2 billion people live this way around the world in different regions. However, extreme poverty could be eradicated. This is what I will be exploring today. Originally, the term is defined as the severe deprivation of basic human needs, which includes food, safe water to drink, sanitation facilities, health, shelter, education, and information. This definition was coined by the UN in 1995. As of 2018, however, this term means, like I said, living on less than $1.25 a day. However, this encompasses that original definition in that if you live less than that, you are deprived of basic human needs because water and food ends up becoming a luxury, which is not supposed to be the way that humans live. The majority of people living in extreme poverty live in South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, the West Indies, East Asia, and the Pacific. Nearly half of the extreme poverty population itself comes from India and China. Eradicating extreme poverty is one of the UN's Millennium Development Goals, which was set in the year 2000. As of 2015, they were 5 years ahead of their schedule. They announced that there were 700 million fewer people living in extreme poverty than in 1990. However, the official goal is to completely eradicate it by the year 2030, which is going back to my original statement that extreme poverty could be eradicated. This report is going to focus on India specifically, since the majority of the extreme poverty comes from here and China. One of the factors that led to India having such a huge population of people living in extreme poverty is that they have such a large population and not everyone has equal access to the resources that the country has to offer. Specifically, some households that have the ability to be productive members of society in whatever way that is, whether it's through agriculture or through cultural handmade things or through sewing, they don't have access to funding or any sort of finance to start the business or to be able to look for work or to be able to support their households. This is due to complex financial rules that are institutionally disallowing small businesses to get loans, and this is because big banks use words like you have bad credit, you don't have any character, you don't have any collateral or guarantee, and people who are very poor and often are uneducated are then unable to become productive members of society. However, they do have a skill to offer, and therefore this led to the emergence of something called microfinancing, which is what I will be talking about. So microfinancing is a program that has been implemented already in India and has had success. I will be talking about how to scale it, however, because while it is showing success, I want to talk about how to use it to eradicate extreme poverty and not just in the way that it's being used now, just to boost the economy. Microfinancing uses independent banks that help rural people who live in extreme poverty have access to opportunity because it gives loans to people who, like I said, do not have collateral or do not have any guarantees or any credit. So the microfinancing program is the practice of giving small loans, and that ranges anywhere from $10 to $500 to extremely poor people. But the loan comes with very basic financial training, and it allows for people to know how to handle their money and know how to use it, and they usually pay it back. This program has had a high repayment rate and very big success. Ila Bhatt initiated the SEWA Cooperative Bank in 1974 in Gujarat, and that is the first modern-day microfinance institution of its kind. This grew into the booming microfinance scene in India that is currently happening. The model that is currently being implemented in the country for this microfinancing is a product of that initial scheme came up with Ila Bhatt. And in addition to that, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development and a model pioneered by Muhammad Yunus, who is a Bangladeshi economist who sort of created more succinct rules and regulations when it came to microfinance. And the biggest advancement that was made in this field is that they created self-help groups, which is small groups of men or women who were loaned the money and they meet whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, whatever the rules of that specific group are, and they check up on each other and they report on each other, and they're self-governing, and they're basically serving as their own banks. So this is what allows this system to be very successful, because like I said, this is going to help rural people living in extreme poverty. This model of having people become their own bank and regulating themselves, it has allowed for great success because the system currently works because of that. And so the groups then report to private NGOs, and then the NGOs would then report to the bank. And this is the model that has currently allowed microfinancing to be as successful as it is, with the high repayment rate and the high success of the companies that use the microfinance loans. As of March 2016, the microfinance program on the Indian subcontinent is the largest in the world. Majority of the financing comes from the Grameen Bank, which started in Bangladesh by Muhammad Yunus, who is the economist who pioneered the regulations when it came to microfinance. That specific bank, Grameen Bank, has recently given out $144 million in loans, which is why they are the leading benefactors right now when it comes to microfinance. As previously stated and emphasized, this plan already exists. What I would like to do is that I want to scale it and use it in order to reduce extreme poverty and not just boost the economy as it is being used today. It is being used with success, but it still hasn't taken off because India is very big and it is not being used to directly go towards the extreme poverty people. So this system has a high return repayment rate, as I said. The repayment rate is short. It is a period. The repayment period is short. It is a year or so, and according to the UN report, households with microfinancing have had higher and more stable income after their microfinancing has brought back money into their small businesses. So this scaling wouldn't change the process of microfinancing at all, because microfinancing in itself is already a new innovation in finance. It already looked at the current financial system and re-innovated the structure and process and allowed for growth. However, the scaling would be a change in the channel in which people would get it, because it would start with encouragement of foreign investment in more banks such as Grameen and Equitas. They already have invested, but they should invest more, and plus more bigger companies should look into microfinancing. They should secure money and dispatch more NGOs to more places around India. Research shows that about 40% is still lacking awareness of this extremely accessible model to gain money. Therefore, through scaling and improving the channels in which people would be aware of this model would greatly help the country rise out of extreme poverty. In addition to redesigning the channel of delivery, I believe the government should play a more active role as well, in that they buy and resell the items that the people who get microfinanced create, because the government does have the opportunity to guarantee their sales. However, they are not currently involved. The government would use the microfinancing as a guarantee that they are going to deliver on what they promise, and that way people who are being microfinanced guarantee income, people who are doing the microfinancing are guaranteed income by the government, and the government does get very cheap products that they are allowed to resell. So this public-private partnership is really going to boost this program, like I said, out of just it being an economic way to help the country. The benefits of this plan are obvious. India gets to pull itself out of extreme poverty by allowing the wide population to have equal access to becoming their own entrepreneurs. The challenges do exist with this model, of course. Even with the self-help groups and the peer check-ins, sometimes loans don't get paid because people sometimes are unable to deliver, or they don't show up, or there are many other different factors. However, all of these are the exception and they are not the rule, because there has been, like I said, a high repayment rate when it comes to microfinancing. So while this sometimes might not be the most effective method for some certain people, it definitely does enhance financial inclusion in a country that has the population power to pull itself out of its poverty through finance. So therefore, microfinancing could allow the poor people to rise above the poverty line and live comfortably in the way that basic human needs aren't something that they would consider a luxury. Eradicating extreme poverty is not hard. especially not in India, because even with their population of 1.3 billion, they only have a 5% of people living in extreme poverty. And that 5% is a major part of the world's population of extreme poverty. Therefore, if we start small by targeting India, it can then be remedied and scaled again to benefit other countries that have higher percentage of extreme populations, such as Nigeria, which, for example, has 191 million people and has a 44% of that living in extreme poverty. It's harder to eradicate it there, but if the system of scaling it works in India with the 5% of people living in extreme poverty, then it could be rescaled again, and the repercussions could be felt through Nigeria, and the country would then also be pulled out of extreme poverty. And so the Millennium Development Goals could be met, and extreme poverty could be eradicated through microfinance. Thank you.